Hello and welcome to another edition of the Digital Zen Art Show. In this thrilling episode we're going to be covering how to create a kind of a basic scene similar to the last one we did with a little bit more complexity, and this time I'm going to start with a plan rather than just winging it and waxing lyrical. Here you go. So I've just sketched out that concept very quickly. It's obviously just kind of like a isolated remote desert scene. More abstract than literal, and quite symbolic. I've also put in some suggestions there to my own concept. Maybe I'll texture the sphere, which is kind of like this kind of weird dwelling, or maybe some kind of Achelion-esque kind of vibe. The Achelion system is obviously the system that the British intelligence used to analyze all the data that goes through the UK, including your text messages and phone calls and etc. So that's just a little bit of a tidbit of trivia. So maybe I'll have some characters. Maybe I'll put some plants and trees to create some atmosphere. Obviously, we're going to have a moon up there, and the idea of that is that like this sketch will help me plan out because I've kind of roughly decided where the light's going to fall. The thing is as well, I might just use a ball of light for the moon in Cinema 4D and just put an actual moon texture on top of it in Photoshop. I haven't quite decided yet, but this is the general objective of what we're going to make, except we're going to have it looking a lot cooler than just a crap drawing. So let's just jump into Cinema 4D and we will take a look at what we need to complete our mission. So first thing, we're looking at this sketch and see a sphere. It's obviously going to use a sphere for the moon temporarily to light it, and we'll have a little sky there. I'm guessing there's a kind of a death-like concept going on here, but with the nighttime, the moon, the sky, and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm not quite sure on the concept 100%. It's just the first thing that came to my head. So any kind of armchair psychologists out there, feel free to comment. So basically, what we start with is just make sure we've got our global. It's something I was working on earlier. Let's get rid of that and make sure we got ambient occlusion and global illumination switched on, which we do not. So I'm going to go to my render setting preset. Oh, by the way, if you have a render setting that you've done, all you do is, like, once you've saved it, rename it XYZ, and then you can go right click it and you can save it as a preset, and that will then save it into your render setting. If you click that, and then you'll go load preset, which I've done before, and I've called it Ollie Optimizer. So that's this one. It's not quite optimized because I want it to be a square format. So, and there's a few more settings I'm going to change just to make it render a bit more nicely. But I'm going to leave it as it is for now, apart from changing the size. So we'll change that to millimeters. Millimeters, pixels, and we'll do 2000 by 2000 because I want a square format. I may Instagram this when it's done. So we're going to just jump back in here. We can see our kind of we've got our little ghosted edges there showing us our actual rendered area of the viewport. You can change that in your settings. Okay, so it's mode, view settings, and then safe frames, and you can adjust the opacity of that here. I normally have it like in about 50%, and if I'm working on a dark scene I might change it to white. Just because obviously that can change it, but I can always jump back in there later and change that back anyway. So right, for the next thing we're going to do then, we're going to look at back to the sketch, and we're going to do our spheres and our landscapes. So the first thing I'll do then, I'll jump in and give myself into the asset browser. And in the asset browser, it's a great place to start because it's actually plethora of resources that are just come with Cinema 4D, and they're baked in, they're free. It's like a whole stock library built into Cinema 4D. So underneath the sky presets, is it the sky here we go. So just under sky, just scroll to wherever that is. So yeah, sky. Just type in sky, but yeah, do feel free to browse this library because it's absolutely amazing. There's so much stuff in here. I mean, I'm going to probably use almost this exclusively apart from the sky, and obviously the stars I'll use as a Photoshop brush. I'll show you that later. So I've just got to pick one of these to use. So I guess the bright night might be the most appropriate one, maybe that or dawn. But let's just click on Bright Night. Just download that from Maxon's server. And obviously we need to change a few settings in here as well. So let's just see how that renders by default. Okay, so we've got some stars going on, which I'll get rid of because I am actually doing that in Photoshop. However, when you do load these scenes, just to bear in mind, you need to put your render settings back to where they were because it's like an entirely dedicated scene. So you need to just put your presets back And I'll have my Instagram is 2000 by 2000 square format. Oops. And I'll click on that and I'll just delete that. Okay, all the optimized groovy. So we're back in here and that's going to re-render for me with a bit more slightly different. I'm going to have to go back as well. I'm just going to check my mode, my view settings. Oh, not modes. My view settings and my save frames is, no, I need that back where it was. And just make it a bit more easy to see. Right, now I need to go into my objects, my physical sky, and I'm going to remove the stars, the planets, and the moon, because I don't want them. That's going to come with Photoshop later. And for my moon, I'm going to just have a sphere, and I'm going to go into create. Oh, you can't see what the menu there. Let me just move my face out of the way. I'm going to go to create a new default material, and let's double click on that and activate our luminance channel. Now moonlight's kind of yellowy or silvery, whatever, so I'm just going to make it slightly yellow, like a moon. And then we're just going to stick that on that sphere. Let's move that up. Have we got any display of lighting yet? We should be seeing something. Oh no, we won't, because it's not an actual light, it's just a luminance channel. So unfortunately, Cinema's 4D preview is a little bit limited like that. But if we do render it, we might be able to see some effect of the moon's having on the landscape. Maybe not yet. Let's have a look at where we're at. So that's where the camera's pointing. The sphere is here. So I might need to take it down a little bit, just see how we get on. I just want to see the effect it has on the landscape. See, oh yeah, see we're slightly activating some global image there. I need to just increase the brightness of this so it's kind of overwhelming. You can go well above 100% brightness, right up to like 10,000s or ish. I'm not sure I've already pushed it up to 1,000 or so. But let's just try 800 or 796. So we can see here now we're actually getting some nice effects from the light. So we'll just pop this back up here to where the moon would be. What have we now got? I think our camera angle is a bit buggered. So what we're going to do is we'll get rid of that. And let's come back out. Okay, so now we've got a bit of a better perspective on it. And I'm just going to increase the number of segments in that sphere. And let's see what we can do now. Okay, so we've got a landscape. We don't really need all of these, to be fair. I need that one, that one, that one, that one. I don't need the front one. I'm going to zoom in more on that one anyway. So I'm going to bring this in here. Obviously now we need to do. There's a bit of jiggery pokery to be done to kind of get it where we want it to be. But you know, this is the kind of the point of it. I can just move this moon back down a little bit, and we can always reduce the intensity of that as well if it is a little bit overwhelming and blowing out the scene. So I'm going to leave it like this for now because it's actually in a useful place for me. Let's add the other sphere, and I'm going to have to knock a little hole out of that, which is here. And I'm going to create another default material, and I'm just going to make that one just white. I may add some luminance just to bring it out a bit, but you don't really take the brightness of the luminance down, and it kind of gives you that kind of ambient light feel that you kind of want. I'm just going to leave the default specular for now. I may come back to it. And here we are. So let's just boost this up a bit, and we put this down here, and we'll see how that gets on. Okay, so here we go. So we're getting kind of close to what we wanted in our concept, which was that. Obviously, we're not really anywhere near it yet, but we're closer than we were. We just have to kind of. I tend to work in a way where I tend to allow the concept to affect the production and the production to affect the concept. If you see a quick win during production, there is no reason not to use it just because you've got a concept on paper. It's kind of like an actor ad-libbing a scene. If they think of something cool to say, the director might just go, hey, it's not in the script, but we're going to use it anyway. So that's how I kind of get on with my creative process. So we're just going to move this back here in our orthographic view, see where we're going with that. And we'll just boost it down a little bit. Get this one here a little bit. And we have an extremely bright moon tonight, which we're going to just fix a little bit here. Maybe try 450, see how that gets on. Slightly more subtle, but I'll leave it there for now because I've got enough light to work with. And obviously, you know, once Cinema 4D renders can be sometimes a bit flat if you don't kind of pay a lot of attention to them, but then that's what Photoshop's for as well, you know. That's you know, just because the renders doesn't mean you can't do the same thing you can in Photoshop to photos. So let's be cool with this one, and we're gonna just increase the segments. Hit C on the keyboard. I'm gonna need to see the mesh. Hopefully not make too much of a mesh, and we're going to see what we can do about adding in a little doorway. So I'm just going to zoom in. Okay, now let me just save this first. Actually, desert scene.sim4d. It's overwritten because I saved it earlier, and then we opened the scene, and yeah, so that's what happened. So just going to use my face selection tool, and we're going to knock some bits out of that. Now, is that going to be enough? I wonder. Let's find out. So if you want to undo and redo your camera movements, you can Shift Command Z, and that will then backtrack every time you move the camera. See, if I move the camera now, I can Shift Command Z and go back to where I was. So I don't need to actually add a camera just yet. And Shift Command Y will redo your camera movement too. So it's a bit like the Photoshop history. So here we go. Let's see if that little gap's big enough. Is it? That's okay. I might make it a little bit bigger. But the idea of that doorway is that I want to create a kind of a sense of scale as well. So I'm not so sure if I want to make that bigger actually. I'm going to leave it for now and then come back to it maybe in a bit. I definitely want to make that sphere bigger though. That's where we're grooving with. So we're just going to move this up. I want the sphere to dominate the scene. I also want it embedded so that the doorway is visible. And let's have a little gander at that. We're blowing out a little bit there on the light still. That's okay. We don't worry too much about that just yet. All I'm doing is kind of getting my composition together. I've got my sky, I've got my desert. And I have a little girl laughing in the background. It's my daughter working on her story. So she's got her own YouTube channel. So yeah, so that's cool. So basically this is where we're at so far. I've got my shadows where I want them to be, roughly. You know, I might add a spotlight if I wanted to force that shadow to exactly what it looks like in the concept. It all comes down to whether, you know, it adds to the beauty of the scene. And in this case, I'm not sure if it will, but I may try it. So, next thing we've got to do is make a little scythe. Got a little scythe there. I want to check the asset browser first. I don't think it has a scythe, no. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a scythe handle out of a loft subdivision. Where's the search? Help! Loft. Generator loft. Okay, cool. Under operators, yeah, there's another place it lives as well, but we won't go there right now. I'm just going to use my loft now, because there's a tutorial about that in my other channel, my other playlist, sorry, on this channel, about the subdivision modeling. So feel free to give that a little gander as well. So, all right, so we have our loft object here, and now I need to add some spline data, so the loft has something to turn into stuff. Let me just put this in here. Where are we at? And I got me loft. I need to put my spline in. And there's a circle. And let's move all this all up. And I'm going to just, I'm going to add a camera just for posterity. And I'm going to just work on this now for the time being. So circle can come down in size. And I'm going to just add this texture to it for now so I can see it. And now we're gonna loft out the handle of the scythe. So that's gonna be here. Can we have caps? I would like caps. I'd like them to be round, and I would like them. There we go. That's a nice little effect going on. The reason I'm using a loft as opposed to a capsule object is because the loft allows me to kind of bend a little bit. So if I do this, we're going a bit crazy. Where are we going? There we go. So if I do this, it'll just kind of bend a little bit for me. It won't be perfect because I want it to be like, a gnarly old kind of scythe handle that you might find in a storybook or something. I can change the size of the circles then as well to kind of create a more ergonomic looking object, which is nice. So yeah, this is kind of where we are so far with that. I'm going to make it a little bit longer and a little bit more kind of Grim Reaper-y. And there we go. I think that will do us for our handle. So next thing I'm going to do is, maybe a tube. Will a tube work? Let's find out. So let's find out. Well, I tell you what, 3D can be confusing. I would love to have a pair of stereoscopic 3D goggles to allow me to navigate this viewport. It would save a tiny bit of time just navigating around. But we got what we got, and we're not going to complain too much because we're stoic. So where are we at? Oh, there we go. So let's pop this here. Bang. Boosh. Oh, no, there, no, there. Going down a little bit, down a little bit, down a little bit. Up a little bit, and here we go. So yeah, put this here, and this will be the start of where the blade joins onto it. So let's get you down there. And it doesn't really matter too much about vast details because we're going to be kind of having it quite small. All right, so how are we going to do the blade? I think maybe another. I want to make it gnarly again, so I'm going to use another loft. I might just copy paste this loft, and so let's rotate that. So now it gives us our ellipses in the loft. So here we go. So circle one is here. Yeah, oh no, wrong one. Go back. Okay, and then we get rid of a few of them. I'll leave that one there for a reference, and I'll just gonna turn that circle into a regular spline so that I can distort it with the scale tool. Now, here we go. So that is going to be attached to that. There we go. So here we have the makings of a Grim Reaper-y type scythe. So yeah, there you go. That'll do. That's perfect. Look, brilliant. I'm joking. So let's go make this a little bit more gnarly. Here we go. See, we're coming out now. I may join these together with the volume builder. I'm not sure if it's worth it from a detail perspective. If it comes out a howler, then I will. But it might not be necessary. Let's just rotate that down and we'll build that out. And we'll just do that again and make it smaller. And rotate that. And obviously, you know, that the handle is a bit mental at the moment because it's not quite beaten into shape. So okay, yeah, I'll do this. Kind of a funky looking gnarly side there, but I'm just going to add one more to add it to a point, and we're going to just rotate that, bring it in a little bit, and bring it up to a point. So we're kind of looking like roughly curvy, where we're just gonna curve it out a bit more. And a bit more. There we go. That looks like a scythe. Now just bring the whole thing down a bit so it matches the thing. And then this tube can come down a bit as well. And we're groovy now. The scythe, obviously. Oh my goodness, no, that won't work. Okay, let's just make it smaller entirely. Okay, so roughly you want a scythe to be about there. Move that up. And move this up. Shrink that a bit. There we go. Perfect. Sort of-ish. I'm not going to be too worried about it. You know, it's only a small enough detail in the overall composition. But we do look it to be kind of cool too. You know, it's got to look cool because you need to make it look cool. Yeah. So just put that there. Now I can move him in a bit as well. And that'll do us a nice sturdy looking side there. Don't know, I should actually look at a real side, but I'm not going to be do too much research on it. So what are we going to make this side blade out? Is there any metal? Metal. Steel. We've got some rusty steel. Steel rust. Let's make it a rusty steel. So we're just going to pop the loft in the tube and make this into a object and hit G and hit Alt G to group them and stick the rusty steel on there. Okay, that should have given us a rusty steel. Oh no, hang on a second. We don't want the loft handle in there because that's going to be made of wood. So here we go. And that one should have the steel. If it's not working, if it's just only applied to the null object, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put that here. Yeah, okay, cool, fine, whatever. It's going to default to UVW mapping, which I'm absolutely fine with for the moment. But you know, you can do cylindrical mapping if it's not working quite on here. If it was like a close-up or whatever. But for this kind of experiment, we're not going to bother because we won't. It'll be quite a small part of the overall composition, like I said. So there we go. Yeah, that'll do us. So now we have our scythe. Boop, bop, boop. SCYTHE. So that now is, let's go back to our camera. It'll save on doing it 50 times. And just drop this down here, shrink it down, and we're just going to move it down here. Let's see where we're at in our orthographic views. Okay. And just rotate that a bit, scale it, and just move it there. We can bury it in the sand a little bit as well. Let me just get this one back up. Yes, that's cool. That can be kind of half buried in the sand there. Happy days. We're good. So now let's see how that looks. There's probably not even any point going to that much trouble to make the scythe. But you might want to use it for something else later, or you might want to make it bigger, depending on your artistic preferences. So let's just leave that for now. So rotate it there, and we're good. Okay, cool. So we have our kind of atmospheric little scene now. What I was thinking about doing, maybe we should put some plants on there, some trees. Let's have a look. Maybe I'm not going to bother about a character, to be fair, but I would like that. I would like that ball to be made maybe out of concrete. So let's concrete here. There we go. It's not that it's a node-based material. If it was actually like one I liked, I would kind of persevere a bit more with it. But I think all of these are kind of a little bit rough. So maybe just lower the bump strength here to like maybe 5%. And what else have we got? Reflectance, bump strength, and we'll bump the reflectance, bump strength down a little bit as well. See how we get on there. It's starting to kind of look a bit better. I wonder what happened if I just turn the bump off completely. We'd still have it rough, I'd imagine. Yes. Okay, so we've got a default layer there. And default specular, let's remove that. Reflectance off. Okay, let's add a luminance channel, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this little fella here, copy that, and we'll copy this for a luminance channel, and we're going to see how that gets on. That's a bit more what I wanted. Okay, so I mean it's pretty cool, but it's kind of wrong because obviously you know, I want this to be at the top. So what I'm going to do is, this is always UV mapping. What I'll do is I'll change this UV mapping mode to spherical. See what happens. Activate our see the texture properly. Activate our texture mode, and now we're just going to do that. Rotate it 90 degrees that way. We've got kind of an igloo type thing going on, which is kind of cool, an efficient shape of concrete blocks. And we're going to, yeah, that's cool. Happy with that. I might just mess around with the luminance a little bit. And we're going to make this black, and that will then allow us to change the mix. So basically, we changed it to black. If you change it to white, changing the mix strength will just kind of make it white, but it'll make it too bright. So what I normally do is change it to black, and then it kind of lets the base texture shine through a bit better. It's a little trick there for you. Just see how this works. Okay, cool. So we're kind of getting there. So far, so good. So yeah. So the next thing we'll do is see if there's any shrubbery, and I'm going to just have a quick break, and I'll be back shortly. Hello and welcome back. So we've had a little break, and I've been messing around with tree objects just to kind of get a feel for it. So I've gone in here to the asset browser, and we found we just searched for tree, and I'm just going to use this ash tree here. So I'm going to drag that into the scene. I've already used this before, and I've deleted it just to kind of get the feel for it. So I'm just going to go edit, delete unused materials. That will remove any excess materials which may cause kind of excess memory usage and storage, etc. It's good to keep on top of things, especially with 3D, unless you got like terabytes and terabytes of data available to you. So ash tree controls, let's get rid of that. We don't really need the node controls here, or the espresso tag, sorry. So I'm going to get rid of that. It's just going to get in the way of my workflow. So I'm just going to combine this into a single object, which is connect objects plus delete. And now I'm going to find a polygon reduction tag. So I just type in here polygon reduction. So generate a polygon reduction. That's going to go in here, and that is going to go in there. So we're triangulating our polygon reduction now. it's just removed the textures momentarily while it calculates, but it is going to give them back. So I've reduced the polygons by 90%. I'm going to go up to 95 perhaps, maybe 96, maybe 99. I don't really need that many polygons. These are kind of background objects. I don't know if anyone remembers how the old PlayStation 1 and subsequently pretty much every games console and graphics card since renders things. The further away they are, the less detail they need. And kind of this is a similar approach where, obviously if I turn off the polygon reduction off, it's going to see you just got much more finer detail. It's not necessary. These are just going to be surrounding this. I'm using these trees to create a sense of scale and a sense of atmosphere. So if I just go on polygon reduction, and so can we make this editable, or is it going to die on me? We're good. So now we have our ash tree, and once I start to duplicate this ash tree, it's not going to choke out my system, which is what I want. So we're just going to scale that down. And hopefully now we'll get ourselves a nice little forest. Now there's a couple of ways I could do this. I could use a cloner. So if I just use this cloner object here somewhere, no, it's MoGraph cloner, and if I stick the ash tree in there, it'll give me a few trees. That's a bit mad. What I can do as well, if I ng this, see obviously there's very heavy geometry. I don't want to assign the cloner to these the vertices or the points, because that will create far too many clones. So I'm probably just going to have to do it manually. If we just go up here to display, currently on Garage shading, you see that was what I was working on before, but I jumped into quick shading because then it lets me see what I'm doing a bit more, because it's not taking into account light sources, etc. So yeah, it's just display, quick shading, and go back to Garage shading if you want roughly a little bit more accurate representation, but not really. So yeah, we'll just stick this in quick shading mode. The cloner's not doing much for us, so we might just not bother with it. We've got a linear cloner here we can use. We can kind of, just kind of plant some trees that way. There is obviously options here for, the count, etc. But to be quite honest with you, I would prefer to control this manually. I just thought I might show you the cloner, because it is a useful thing, and you can do a whole tutorial on it, which I will do in my other playlist. But for now, we're just going to take this ash tree, and we're going to stick it here, and what I'm going to do is duplicate it, rotate it so that it kind of looks a bit different. You can scale it a little bit, you can rotate it so it's bent a little bit, and and up here we're going to use our world object control coordinate system, so that basically when I start to move these and I start to rotate them, if I start to move them around, it'll get embedded in the geometry, or it'll come out of it completely, because it's not the same. It's not going to go along a horizontal line. It'll be a bent line or a crooked line, like, because I've moved it. But if I just change the coordinate system up here, it gives me a straight kind of thing. So it gives me a little bit more control in this context for the controls of the tree. So we're just going to pop into our orthographic viewports and get myself some of this. How are our render settings looking? So I'm just going to put this on preview mode. Good. And my global illuminations on preview. Okay. So that should give me enough. Oh, accidentally knocked that sideways. Let's get off that so I don't have that orange outline. And we will see how we get on with this render. The render preview is a bit weird, because Cinema 4D doesn't let you move in the mouse when you ask it to render. So a preview at least. So you have to keep it, either put the mouse elsewhere, or just don't move it. Because it can just restart the render if you accidentally move the mouse, which is highly irritating. But it's okay now. We're not going to move the mouse. I'll speed this up in post if I need to. The global illumination is going to take a little while, because there's so much geometry going on with those trees. The global illumination needs to kind of bounce the light around, and even on this preview setting. So who knows how long this will take to render, but I'll just leave it and go away and have some lunch or something like that if it takes too long. But, in the preview, generally you can roughly gauge, if the preview takes a minute, or if if it takes 3 minutes, you're going to have a bit of a handful of rendering time on your hands. So for here, what we got, pretty happy with that, to be fair. I think that'll look good when it's actually rendered properly. You can see the global illumination is just kind of speckling the light there on the concrete. structure. And we've got our scythe there. Do I want any more bushes or anything like that? Probably should put some bushes in, I guess. I'm just gonna jush up these trees at the start here. Okay, turn that off, just to make sure that, you know, there's a differentiation going on. Because otherwise what will happen is that it won't look too cool, and we can't have that. So I just want to make sure there's an abundance of tree trunks as well. Yeah, that'll do us, that'll do us. Alright, now so look at asset browser, some plants. Plants, we got plant, ash trees. Let's have a look in here. I don't want anything indoorsy, but the bush should be cool. Yeah, okay, let's just try the bush. Yeah, I'm not going to make any bush jokes. That would be juvenile and salacious. However, we do have a rather nice looking bush here. So what I'll do is I'll stick a bush near the entrance. And again, V-Ray. Okay, well, hopefully it renders in the physical. 0.9 meters. Okay, cool. Get rid of you, get rid of you. Get rid of that. Why is that thing? Okay, excellent. Bush. Don't really need that. So we'll get rid of you, and we'll just faff around with this bush for a second. I'll do the same thing I did before when you kind of differentiate it a little bit. Let's create a little bit different. And put some bushes in here. So that will then, I didn't duplicate that, oops. So here we go, we've got some trees, got some bushes. And I think, you know, a couple of bushes around the entrance to kind of just close it in a little bit. Just close it in a little bit. And there we go, and get the bush over. I don't think that really works there, so pop it over here by the other one. And overlap them slightly. Remember, this will be in shade, so it doesn't really matter if if polygons are sticking into each other. It's fair, you know, it's going to be hidden by the shade anyway. This is the kind of thing you have to think about when you're illustrating in 3D. Is like, you know, how is it actually going to be viewed? And sometimes it's just not worth putting in all the extra work for zero return. Okay, so next thing, I want to just put characters in here. I think like some characters might be we've got some characters in here. What a character. I don't want any of those weird ones. Just like a human, maybe? A human. We got a human. We got a Bob or a Mary or a Tim or a Jessica. Let's see, human. Aha, we have a big man. We have a couple of big men. So, okay, we've got a guy running. That'll do us. I think if I have him running out the door, that'll be, I'll shrink him down a bit, obviously. Because he's going to be tiny. I don't know if you'll even be able to see him, to be honest, but we'll do the preview render anyway and see if we can get him running out the door. Alright, so I'm just going to zoom in on him. Okay, just finished that preview render. I'm pretty happy with how things are looking. It's all looking pretty good to me so far. What I'm going to do next, just going to group all these trees into an object. All the trees first. And I'm going to just group those. And hopefully that should be, okay, so this null object, I'm going to put all the trees, and I'm going to stick a render tag, compositing. This will obviously now, what this is going to do is it's going to create a kind of a clip and mask all over this. It's not going to do it for me entirely, so I'm going to have to work in Photoshop to kind of get rid of all the extra. But what it will do is it'll create a mask around this detailing here, which is important to me because that would take ages to cut it out. And I'm going to stick a compositing tag on the sphere as well, and that's going to have an object buffer. So I'm going to enable the object buffer there, I'm going to enable the object buffer there. I'm going to make sure my object buffer is enabled under multipass, post effects. We don't really need post effects, but it's checked for some reason, whatever. And group ID 1. Okay, the object buffer is now working. So cool. I'm going to put my render settings back to medium. I don't really need them high. It's like, again, back to optimization. It would be clock cycles that are not necessarily adding anything visual because it's 2000 by 2000 pixel image. It's not like a gigantic illustration thing. So the next thing we need to make sure global illumination is done. This is probably going to take an hour or two to render. Medium, ambient occlusion, global illumination, medium, physical, medium. I think we're cool. Do we want depth of field? Do we want depth of field? No, I'm not going to do that because it's an illustration, and I deliberately do not want this to be photographic. So now that's good. How's my scythe? I'm going to rotate the scythe so that the blade is pointing at the man, make it more threatening. He's running from death, remember? He's running from the death of freedom that we experience when the government is tracing every call we make with its Achilleon system. Okay, bury that in the sand a little bit. Happy days. Okay, just a little bit more. Just a little bit more. Zoom in on that. Zoom in on that. Yeah, that'll do it. So maybe the point should be. There we go. That will do. Alright, so I'm going to hit render on that, and well, I'll be back in an hour or so to check on it. So when this is rendered, I'll jump back on and we'll jump into Photoshop. See you in a bit. Hello and welcome back. Obviously you've only just been away for a few seconds, but I've been here for 1 hour and 35 minutes on this. That's how long the render took. So I'm just going to save this as a PSD and save that down to my desktop. I shouldn't really be working on the desktop, but I'm going to file it away later. So basically I kind of made a little bit of a mistake here with this area. I kind of have these bushes a little bit too high up and they're kind of floating there. It's not what I want. So rather than re-render the whole thing, I've gone in, I've moved the bushes down so that they're touching the floor, yeah? And what we can do is use our render preview and we can just make it smaller. We can just re-render the bit we want, yeah? And so what we can do there is, well, so I've got that area. That's the area I want to re-render. So I'll just turn that off so I'm not using up processing power unnecessarily. And if we go in here into our, where are we gone? Output. So render region here. So if we just go into copy from IRR, that will automatically check render region for us. And when we go to hit render again, you will notice that it only renders the area we want to fix. So that's just going to take another little bit of time to render as well. But obviously where the bushes are not going to be floating, that's a good thing because you can't really have floating bushes. Let's have a look. That one, okay, that's all pretty good. So far so good. And we're just waiting for this to render out now. So we've rendered our little fix here, which is groovy. So we're just going to save this down as a PSD, but obviously careful not to overwrite the original. What I normally do is put a little underscore after it. So I'm just going to call that desert scene and then underscore. So there we go. That should be finished up with Cinema 4D for now. Let's jump right into Photoshop. Hello, and we're back working in Photoshop now. I've comped in the fixed piece as well. I just selected it with the marquee tool and pasted it in place onto this, and then hit Command E to merge the layers. So where we are now is we can start to add a little bit more detail around the clouds and the stars. And obviously, what we're going to do as well. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just copy this picture of the moon I found on Google. I guess all pictures of the moon are pretty generic, so I'm not going to have to worry too much about copyright issues. And it's not really for commercial use anyway. You can get moonshots on Shutterstock, etc. if you're going to worry about commercial licenses and stuff. Personally, I tend not to do it for personal stuff, but you know, if the channel ever blew up, you might have an issue there. But just, I can't see it happening. So if I just paste that in there, I'm just going to boost that up a little bit. Okay, so now we have a nice moon. So let's try a few blending modes, see what happens. Multiply, Doesn't really do a lot. Color burn, darken. Let's just see what happens. Okay, so not a lot's happening with the color modes, with the blending modes. There's a few bits here and there, but nothing I'd be too inclined to worry about. So I'll just leave it as normal, and I just want to reduce the opacity of the moon to brighten it up a little bit. So I'll just hit number 7 on my keyboard, because that is the when you hit a number on the keyboard, it changes the opacity of the layer in Photoshop. So what I'll do as well, I'm just going to magic wand that, and I'm going to invert the selection and trim it so there's no kind of weird little edges. And so there we have our moon. I'm going to reduce that to about, just getting a little bit, 60%, maybe 70. I think that's groovy. So now I have my moon in there, which I'm happy with, and I want to add some stars. Now you can just Google around for Photoshop brushes. They generally come as an ABR file or .abr file. And what you can do with those is you just basically you download the ABR file into your downloads folder and you drag it onto the Photoshop icon, and it will open the brushes in Photoshop. I'm not going to go through that now because it's pretty self-explanatory. Let's get rid of you. Don't save that. So what I'll do next is I'll open my brushes. So you have to be careful as well, because if you need the brush tool, right, and you can kind of add stars and stuff. That's currently set to 70% opacity, so I'm going to create a new layer. That'll give me 100% opacity, and your angle bracket keys will reduce and increase the size of your brush respectively. So you can put your stars in there. So I've got my stars here. I got stars and flares. That's just the name of the pack I'm using. You can download loads of different packs of free brushes that are on the internet, and then just drag your ABR file into Photoshop, and away you go. So this one, that's a bit bonkers, but we'll just have a little play around with them on this layer. Some nice kind of stars and stuff. I don't want to go too crazy with it. I think just a few here. I'll do a kind of plow. So it doesn't really matter yet if I just kind of draw on this. I'm going to be using the object buffer here to kind of create a clipping mask around it anyway, so it won't matter too much if I go over the lines, if I color over the lines. So try a different star. I think some of these are a bit mad, but that's quite a nice one. And a different star. They're all a bit metal, aren't they? Huge. I suppose if you're doing a massive illustration, you might want to have some high resolution star brushes, which is lovely. That's one of my favorites, actually, the classic kind of twinkle star. And you can overlap them as well, so you can have that there, and you could have a few here, maybe pop a few in there. Actually, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to use my eraser. I'm going to delete the original ones because I'm not a big fan of them, to be honest. Change the eraser mode to block, just blocks them out. And yeah, I'm just going to go back to this one because I like this one a lot more. So yeah, we're going to we've got a few stars going on here. I'm pretty happy with that. Looks about right. And now what we need to do is add some clouds, and I'll add a cloud. I should be naming my layers, but what I normally do is I just turn them on and off, and then if it disappears and reappears, then I know I'm on the right layer. So we've got our cloud layer here as well. Clouds by Mila. This is the Photoshop brush pack I'm going to be using. As you can see here, it gives you that kind of cloud effect. Obviously, that's quite heavy. I was kind of hoping for some more like stratus looking clouds, not quite cumulus as that's given me there, but I'm not going to go looking for another cloud pack if it's not available. I'm just going to make do. It's kind of seriously. Obviously on a starry night as well, you probably wouldn't have clouds, so you can change the color of the cloud brush. So you'd probably want to have a little balance between that and this, because obviously you wouldn't have bright white clouds on a moonlit night. And obviously you'd have a kind of a glow coming off the moon as well, which I will add in another layer as well. But just for now, we'll just see what we got with the clouds. Have we got any more? Oh yes, we got other clouds. Wet blender, no, we got no more clouds. Okay, so yeah, I mean that'll probably get us by. I'll just got a few of them. We'll see. You can kind of reuse the same brush if you just kind of cut it off at the edge and stuff as well. So a little trick to bear in mind. Does this cloud look okay? It's quite light. Will it block the moon entirely? I mean, it's not too bad. I think you could probably do it maybe being a little bit darker. And so we'll make it a tiny bit darker, not too much, I suppose, because obviously you want it to be visible on top of the sky. Yeah, we can put some clouds in the background there as well. They'll be coming off up out of it because they're quite low, those type of clouds, I believe. Could be wrong, but yeah, so we kind of got a whole bunch of cumulus clouds here. Where were we? Stars and flares, clouds. And yeah, let's just stick a few more clouds in there. They're not too bad. I'll just boost the size of this brush up massive, and we'll be pretty groovy. There are clouds. Now what we're going to do next, because we kind of colored over the lines a bit, we'll just hit our object buffer, Command Shift I, and we'll just hit this little widget down here to make a mask that kind of masks it all for us. I was going to mask the moon, but then I realized clouds do go over the moon, so that was my crazy brain in action. So what we do need to do though is, if we go to the background layer, I'll just magic wand that again, and I'll copy paste it up into a new layer, and that'll go here. And I don't obviously want that being there, so I'm going to put it back under the moon. I'm just showing you what I was copying and pasting, and what I'll do is I'll go filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and that'll give me a bit of a moon haze, which is what we want. Is this whole thing in a... Where's my mask? Oh, there's my mask there. Okay, so obviously I probably want to remask it on the haze as well, just in case. Maybe not. But yeah, it's kind of making those clouds look a bit weird that are going over the moon. So yeah, I'm just wondering if I need to create some kind of blending mode. Okay, what are we doing? Okay, we've got our Gaussian blur here. Sorry, I just got a bit distracted there. Too much. It's about right, I'd say. Not too much. And obviously I'll reduce the opacity a little bit as well, just to kind of make it that bit more subtle. Now what I'll do with these clouds up here is I might stick a color overlay on them. So that'll kind of give me a few options to play with in retrospect. Because the clouds are kind of, it's tricky to get them looking right because I don't have a visual reference apart from my little concept there. So the color overlay can go just, let's have a look and see, because what we want to do really, kind of just want to create kind of half convincing, like, it's too much. I mean, that's kind of cool. I mean, you could have them in pink if you wanted, let's go to your color picker. You could have nice pink clouds and red clouds, but you wouldn't want to do that really. Cancel that. So we'll just have our color picker here, and we'll just sample it from the scene, because that seems to give us something a little bit more cool to work with. I mean, that's kind of groovy. That's kind of cool. Pretty happy with that. So yeah. So what we want to do next then is potentially have a little play around with kind of making it a little bit kind of different. So obviously you can use your oil paint filter. But what I'll do is I will just group all these layers together and copy paste it so that I've got a backup. I can just then flatten that, and I'll create a copy of that. And I wonder if my high pass filter is available in here. So here's a high pass filter. And what that does is kind of accentuates your edges. And when you kind of then put that over the top of it with the multiply tool, or I think there's a few you can use, but it just helps you bring some edges out there and makes it look a bit more kind of like hand illustrated. You can quantize the colors as well, but I'm just going to roll with this for now. You can see there where it's kind of made everything a little bit sharper. And so we can just mess with the opacity of that as well, so that'll reduce the effect. So if you just kind of go for like 50%. And what I'll do as well is I'll experiment with the oil paint filter as well. So this is a bit I'm doing on the fly now. I'm just doing this as a kind of a random experiment. So there's my oil paint filter. Here's my oil paint filter settings. Stylization. 10. So maybe if we go stylization like 4, cleanliness, we still got that kind of just juice it up a little bit, I don't want it to look completely kind of like hand drawn, so obviously you want a bit of, you want to kind of look a certain way. I'm trying to go for a certain aesthetic, and I think think about there, 7.5 cleanliness. So the cleanliness makes it quite swooshy. So we'll reduce the cleanliness, and I think, yeah, that's kind of cool. I like what's happening with these bristles here as well, and I kind of like what's happening around the rest of the area. So I'm pleased with that. That'll do me. I've got my high pass filter here as well, bringing out some details. So if I just bring that up to 100% again on the overlay blending mode, you can see now where it's kind of a combination of what I had and the oil paint filter. So that's not too bad. What I'll do again, I'm just gonna group those and change group, and I'll flatten that. Now what I want to do next is see if I can maybe quantize the colors a little bit. So this is a bit of a tricky one. You can reduce the colors. What I could normally do is if I save it as like a PNG, and you can kind of reduce the number of colors. I think it's either PNG or GIF, one or the other. It's one of those lossless image formats, but you can reduce the number of colors in that somewhere. I think maybe if we try GIF or GIF. Do you pronounce it GIF or GIF? Let me know in the comments. And we can reduce the color. So we've got this kind of illustrated kind of vibe here as well, where it's quantized the colors. Has it dithered? Let's see what happens when we dither it. Do we want to dither it? Okay, we can dither it. Yeah, that's going to give us kind of a different feel still. Maybe we'll just go 50% dither, see what happens. Yeah, so the dithering, I think, is kind of interesting. Let's just zoom out a little bit. So obviously we're kind of like, I've got this kind of dream scene, and I'm a fan of my kind of 90s point-and-click adventures. I want to capture that essence, but I don't want it to be a slave to its own essence. So, you know, it's kind of an important balance to strike between kind of those things. So, yeah, I mean, 100% dither, you know, I'm just going to leave 100% dither. I like that. That's groovy. So you can reduce the number of colors as well. If you had 16 colors, it would look like that. And 2 colors, you're just going to have that. We don't want that. So here's 4 colors, 8 colors, 16 colors. I'm happy with 16 colors. I might go for 32. I mean, 32 does give it a little bit more depth. Let's try 64. So basically, the old Amigas, and I think even the Sega Mega Drive, on the PCs of old had about 256 colors, but the Commodore Amiga 500 and 600, they could display, I think, 16 colors max. From a palette of 4096, but it could display 16 of those at one time. Or was it 32? I think it was 32. It might have been 32 actually. My memory's a bit fuzzy now, but it was either 16 or 32, but there was a mode in Deluxe Paint that allowed you to double that by halving the brightness of the palette. It was called Hold and Modify, invented I think by Dan Silva. I think he was still at Electronic Arts back then. So basically this one, I mean, this is cool, this is groovy. It's really like, I'm going to go for 32. I'm going to go for 32. Maybe, what was it? 32 colors. Was it? Well, I'm going to Google it. I'm going to Google it right now. Let's have a look. Amiga 600 colors. How many? Okay, up to 32 colors. Is that right? Yeah, so it could display 32 colors. So 32 is what we're going to go for. Boom. So that's going to need to be saved as a GIF. Now I'm going to bring that back into Photoshop as a layer. And you see here now, we'll see a slight difference in color. And so what we can do here is I'm going to just, I'm kind of happy to kind of go with that. I've lost a bit of detail in the trees there, to be expected, of course. And yeah, I'm not gonna work any more on that. I think it's where I want it to be. So the next thing we want to do, I'm just gonna try a color lookup under the layers panel. Layers, color lookup, and I'm gonna see if any of these work. They may or may not work. I don't know. 2D strip. They're all lovely. They're all really nice, well thought out kind of color profiles. But it depends on what you use them for. So, something like that might be cool. Remember, you can have the opacity of the layer as well, so you can just kind of work around about. Crisp warm is going to want one I'm going to keep in mind. Edgy amber, no thank you. Fall colors. I kind of know what these do already. I'm just going through them for the sake of seeing get on here. But Film Stock 50 is pretty good. Foggy Night, no good. And yeah, I mean Fuji ones are generally pretty good anyway. So cancel that. Fuji, the Fujis. Who remembers the Fujis? I wasn't ever a fan, to be honest. So I mean, no. Horror Blue, no. Codec, no. Maybe. I guess it's the vibe you want to capture, isn't it? What vibe do we want to capture? Just that kind of adventure feel, that kind of look at it and it takes you away to a place. So I think go back to the crisp warm, I think, but maybe we'll just reduce the opacity ever so slightly. So now we have our kind of our 3D illustrated scene. I've kind of tooled about with it in Photoshop. Back to so if we just, that was the very original one was this one, I think. Let's just turn you on. So this was the original that we started off with, and what we've done is kind of just enhanced it, give it a bit more depth of color, a bit more feel, a bit more vibe, and a bit more character. And I think to me this has been a successful project, and if you've made it this far, very well done, and I massively appreciate you following along for this journey, because it's been a journey of learning and discovery for me. So if you've enjoyed this, please feel free to like and subscribe, or if you hated it, just dislike it. I won't take it personally. So yeah, all the best with your 3D journey out there, guys, and I'll get another one of these ready at some point, and we'll have another bit of fun. So all the best for now, and take care. Bye bye.